Today we're going to be talking about why your hip thrust feels like it sucks. A lot of people definitely chase load more than they chase tension. Their feet are all fucked up, and it's definitely become more of an ego workout than a glute workout. So I'm going to get all set up and then we'll get to it. Hip thrusts are great for building your glutes because they work it in the short end contraction, and you can load it a lot without a lot of axial fatigue. But when your form is off, it can target your quad more than your glutes, and it can also cause some low back issues, and people find it quite uncomfortable and also sometimes aren't sure how to set up a barbell hip thrust. First mistake. I'm not going to show this one with weight on because I don't want back problems. So the first one is people extend through their spine and not through their hips. And what that would look like in practice would be they are coming here, and instead of stopping, like I squeeze my glutes and I stop here, they'll keep going like this. They're looking up at the ceiling. They're extending so their spine becomes curved, and they think that higher up means more glutes, and it really doesn't. It takes the load off of the glutes and translate it into the spine. So you're here, squeeze. You want your body in a straight line, chin tucked looking forward to protect and keep your spine neutral. And we're here. The second easiest fix is your feet. A lot of people, I'm going to move this barbell back so you can see a little bit more, will have their feet either too far or too close. And so how that translates, goodness gracious, how that'll translate is if your feet are too far, you're gonna feel it a lot in your hamstrings, not a lot in the glutes. I don't even know if that would be too far. And then if your feet are too close, you're gonna feel it a lot in your quads. And too close can even be right here. And you want your knee and your heel to be in a line so that you can push evenly. And you're going to be at 90 degrees when you come up, and your knee, 90-degree bend, like a corner. And so here, remember, chin tucked, and then that way I feel it right in my glutes, and the transfer of power is in a straight line. Similar to the advice I give with bench press, where you want your wrist and your elbow stacked. It's the same concept with your leg. It's going to be in a better position if there's that knee, ankle, heel translation there. Those are the first two fixes. If you're doing either of those, try fixing them and see how your hip thrust feels. Again, don't overload the bar. It's better to start low and add weight. The next one is you feel like your upper body is sliding all over the place. The best way to fix that is to get a proper height for your bench. That's why I use these stackable aerobic steps, because the typical bench is a little too high for me, and it'll put me into that first problem I mentioned with the spine extension. And I can't get my hips and my knees in a straight line because typically my hips are going to be positioned above my knees because I'm a little too high. And so a shorter surface is better. I like to stack. I'm almost 5'4". 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 of these little things. And so when I'm sitting on it, my knee's at about 90 degrees, which is good. Because then when I come down, I put the edge right underneath my shoulder blades, shoulders down, and I use my elbows here. And then of course I'll be holding the bar. That way I'm staying in the same position, and that point of contact doesn't change. It's just I'm rotating on it, so it's not sliding down like this and then trying to come back up and then going all over the place. And that also goes with control. If you have too much load, or you're rushing, I guess would be a better way to put it, you are going to move quite a bit because you're not focusing on contracting and moving in smooth patterns. And so if you're sliding all over the place, it could definitely be you either need to bring the floor up to you by getting a platform or getting the bench lower so that you can properly contact your shoulders with the area that'll be your pivot point without moving a foot and a half every time you do a rep. Cool. Next problem is load. So, like I said, always better to start low and move up. So, the weight that you use is going to be completely dependent on your experience and strength. I've been doing hip thrusts for about 10 years now, so I'm pretty well seasoned, if I do say so myself. I like to get a hip thrust pad, obvious. A lot of gyms will have them. I just ordered mine from Amazon. You can use a machine too, but some places don't have a machine. Or there's only one and it's occupied. So when I am getting ready to get underneath the bar, remember the tips that I said before, and then I go down, shoulder blades. That's why I like the shorter bench, because my shoulder blades end up where I want them to be. I might have to shimmy up a little bit. I extend my legs, and remember, I want that 90-degree angle with my foot. So what I do is I think of where my knee is, and that's where my heel is gonna go. So I'm here, just like that, and then I use my arms to bring myself up here. I grab. I am pushing the bar onto my upper thighs when I move up. Chin tucked. That's gonna be annoying as fuck. Capiche? If you are experiencing back pain, it could be you're doing the scoop method where you. Let me show you. So the scoop method is where my feet are gonna be in a dumb position. There we go. Scoop position is when you do this rather than here. Neither are wrong. It just depends on how it feels for you. I can get away with both, but typically I feel more tension in the stiffer version. And if you have back pain or your back isn't very strong, you probably don't want to do the scoop method. You could do the scoop method with body weight or lighter weights potentially, but if you're experiencing back pain, I would avoid it altogether. And with that, you also have to keep in mind you want intra-abdominal pressure, so you do want to brace and what that might look like. So there, everything's stacked, and I'm here, or I'm still tight. You don't want no engagement in your core, because again, that's going to lead to some back pain, potential injury, especially if you're not very seasoned in the barbell. Since it is free floating, it's a lot easier to injure yourself. That's not as much of an issue with the machines because it keeps you in a certain bar path, but obviously with a barbell, it's a little bit easier to go a little wily and get out of control. So control, you want to make sure that you're bracing your core, feet are in the right position, not hyperextending your spine at the top, as well as keeping your chin tucked so that you're looking forward. I tend to keep my chin tucked and look like slightly in front of my feet, and that helps me. But if I'm in front of a mirror like I am today, I'll look at straight forward in the mirror. You might get a little double chin action going on. That's when I hit one of these. That way I can just use the pressure from biting down to push through it, but as also hide my ugly lifting face. And then the next tip is to progress. And like I said, you don't want to ego load the bar and then injure yourself or your form suffers. So typically, I find that most women can get away with more than they think on hip thrusts, but there's fear, and do what you feel most comfortable with. If you're afraid to put more weight on, when you are adding weight, start with 10 pounds each side, maybe 5 if you're feeling a little unsure, and see how it feels, and then go up the next set if you need to. It's easier to incrementally increase and find your sweet spot than to jump up too much and injure yourself. So, listen to your body. And more load doesn't mean more glutes necessarily, but more tension does. So, if you want to, maybe you're not comfortable adding weight, you can certainly slow the reps down, do some tempo where you're 1, 2, 3, explode and squeeze, or you can do, or you can combine them or do them separately. You can hold at where the hardest contraction is, which is at the top of the bridge, and hold it there and then come down. You can also do hip thrusts on the floor. Usually I have to use quite a bit lighter weight, otherwise I feel like the bar is gonna roll over and hit me in the face. But you can do them from the floor if you want more stability. You can also do body weight, you can do dumbbell, you can do machines, whatever helps you. And then having varied rep schemes throughout the week. So maybe you have some days where you do heavier and you do 8 to 10, and then it's still great to do days where you do 15 plus so that you can feel the burn. And what I typically like to do is I will start with a warm up that's about, I can crank out sometimes as many as 30, so I can really start to feel the burn in the area that I want to feel it in, and then I'll slowly increase the weight after that. And then the weight that I end up with just depends on how I'm feeling that day and what I'm going for. Today's gonna be a heavier day, so I'm gonna put some more weight on. Typically, barbell, I can load quite a bit, actually, comparatively to the machine. So I'll probably, right now I have 205. I will probably bump it up to 315, depending on what plates I can find. I think there's some 55s over there. And so then I will see how it feels and crank it out with good form, of course. But those are typically the things that I see that could help. And a great way to get started is just to start with a singular dumbbell, really focus on form, and then with the singular dumbbell, place it, ouch, my feet, place it on your hips similar to how you would for a barbell. So instead of upwards where the two pieces are here, you would tip it to the side, and so that it's on your hips. And again, when you're coming up, pushing the weight onto your upper thighs feels a lot better, and I find helps me get into a good rhythm. So let's see it in practice.